I'm Chris Bragg, Chief District Court Judge for Union County. Welcome to This Is Your Court. The purpose of this program is to educate and inform the citizens of Union County about our third branch of government, the judicial branch. In previous shows, we've discussed local court issues with judges, the district attorney, our sheriff, the clerk of Superior Court, and staff from various court programs. I hope those interviews have been helpful in understanding the duties of court officials and how they interact. I often hear from family and friends that they know very little about candidates running for judicial offices, especially those at the state level. So to continue our mission of educating the public, we are beginning a series of interviews with candidates for the North Carolina Court of Appeals and the North Carolina Supreme Court. The candidates for these important judicial offices run in statewide, nonpartisan elections. And we are very fortunate that many of the judicial candidates involved in a contested general election have agreed to appear on this program and to share with you their qualifications and vision for the offices they seek. These interviews will run on a daily basis through the November 2nd general election. The fact that a candidate appears on This Is Your Court is not an endorsement from me, this program, or Union County. And to ensure fairness, each candidate has received a copy of the questions I'll be asking, and I'll ask the same questions in the same order to every candidate. Now, joining me at this time is Mr. Wesley Casteen. Mr. Casteen, welcome to the program, and thank you for traveling to Union County.
Thank you for having me, Judge Bragg. I appreciate the opportunity.
We start every program the same way. Would you tell the voters or the viewers, what office are you seeking?
I'm seeking an office on the Court of Appeals. It's the seat that was recently vacated by Judge Wynn, who was elevated to the federal bench.
And the next question is always, well, who is your opponent? And I've not asked any of the candidates in this race to name all 12 opponents, but you are...
Luckily, you haven't asked that because I'm not sure I can name all 12.
Right, but you are one of 13 candidates running for Judge Wynn's seat, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Casteen, can you briefly tell us about yourself? Who is Wesley Casteen?
Well, I am originally from Eastern North Carolina, having been born in Fort Riley, Kansas, as my dad was mustering out of the Army. But since I was about 6 months old, Eastern North Carolina has been home. Currently reside in Wilmington, have been there since 2004 and maintain a law practice there, and have really enjoyed the practice of law and the time that I've spent in Wilmington and dealing with my clients.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background?
Again, mostly in North Carolina.
Okay.
I went to Wake Forest as an undergrad. I was an accounting major at Wake Forest, graduated in 1989, passed the CPA exam in 1989, worked 2 years in public accounting. That's a requirement to get licensed as a public accountant. You have to work for 2 years. After I got my work experience, went back to law school, went to Campbell University, graduated from there with honors in 1994, began my practice of law, have maintained a relatively general practice throughout most of my career. I sometimes tell people, other than a capital criminal case, I've done everything at least once. Okay. More recently, my practice has been concentrated in the areas of business and commercial law, taxation, tax defense, estate planning, estate administration, those types of things. And in relation to the nature of my practice these days, I've recently received a Master of Laws degree from the University of Alabama this year with a concentration in taxation.
Okay. Why are you seeking a seat on the North Carolina Court of Appeals?
Well, the seat opened up, as I said a few moments ago, because Judge Wynn was somewhat unexpectedly elevated to the federal bench after a 15-year wait. That opened the seat up. When I heard that the Board of Elections was going to have a very short candidacy period, I started looking at the resumes and bios of the current makeup of the appellate bench. And one thing that I saw that wasn't there was a tremendous amount of business and financial background. Being an attorney and a CPA, I think that provides a skill set and an opportunity to bring that training and that experience in finance and management and business to the bench. Those things are recognized within the state as being important. North Carolina presently has 3 sittings of the business court,
right,
specifically to hear complex business matters. So there's a recognition within the state that those types of matters require a certain amount of expertise and training to be able to quickly understand and deal with the issues that arise in those types of matters. And I think I would bring that same type of experience and expertise to the appellate bench.
Okay. What characteristics do you think are important for an appellate judge?
Well, I think any judge requires a good understanding of the law. I think that's a given. I think any candidate running for the position probably satisfies that requirement. In addition, a judge, more so than an attorney practicing with clients, has to have the ability to look at an issue or a case impartially with objectivity and be able to render a fair and ruling on the law, not advocating for any particular party or position, but to render a ruling that's consistent with the law. And important for a group like the appellate bench, I think it's important to have a base of knowledge beyond the law that allows the justices to bring in that knowledge to sort of evaluate the cases and be able to understand the practical applications of how their decisions affect the people involved.
Okay. And that leads right into my next question. What life experiences have prepared you to serve on the Court of Appeals?
Well, again, I do have a background in public accounting. I've practiced more than 15 years in the practice of law. I have also appeared in all divisions of the state courts. District Court, Superior Court. I've appeared in front of the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. So those experiences, I have also appeared in front of the United States Bankruptcy Court and United States Tax Court. So I have the experience to support my candidacy for the Court of Appeals. I think I have a breadth of experience that would allow me to have an impact and be a productive member of the appellate court.
Okay. What challenges do you see facing our Court of Appeals?
The Court of Appeals particularly hears a tremendous number of cases. The Supreme Court has some ability to control its own docket. There are some cases that go to the Supreme Court as a matter of right, but many of the cases that go there are at the discretion of the court itself. Unlike that, the Court of Appeals hears many cases coming from administrative agencies and the trial courts, and many of those cases go to the Court of Appeals as a matter of right, so they have to hear them and make some type of ruling on them. So there's a tremendous volume, and given the budget constraints and the volume of cases and the fact that there are 15 justices hearing thousands of cases during their appellate term, it's a difficult proposition, and that's probably the biggest challenge, is being able to give a fair hearing and being able to give the parties the proper forum to allow them to have their grievances heard and resolved.
If you are elected to the Court of Appeals, what actions or efforts do you think you can take to overcome that challenge?
Well, I have pushed very hard to on behalf of my clients, to make sure they had a forum at the appellate level. Unfortunately, a few years ago, there was a move within some panels of the Court of Appeals, that the court sits in panels of 3 judges, that used a ruling by the Supreme Court as a means to clear the docket. Cases were unfortunately dismissed fairly regularly on very technical grounds, rather than being heard on their merits, which is an unfortunate position, because usually by the time it gets to the Court of Appeals, the parties have spent years in litigation and many thousands of dollars, and having a case dismissed on what were arguably very technical bases was very disappointing to many clients. I was actually counsel for a gentleman in a case, Walsh v. Wrightsville Beach, which was very instrumental in having the then interpretation of a case from the Supreme Court being VIR, having it constrained such that the technical dismissals that were taking place have since diminished. And that case was in fact named by North Carolina Lawyers Weekly, and that with the companion case of State v. Hart was named by Lawyers Weekly as the most important appellate decision of 2007. Okay. So I'm quite proud of the work that we did in that case.
What would you like to say to the citizens of Union County about your candidacy for the Court of Appeals?
Well, I'd first like to thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I would like to say to the citizens and voters of Union County that this is an opportunity that I appreciate, to be able to come to you and tell you a little bit about myself. I hope that I've been able to give you a reason to consider me and vote for me on November 2nd. Many times I am asked, what difference do you bring to the court? And again, what I think I bring to the court that may be lacking or not readily apparent in some of the other candidates is that I have a background beyond the law. I have a professional expertise in business and finance, and bring to the bench the skills and abilities also of a certified public accountant. And I believe that breadth of knowledge and skills would be very beneficial and help me as I work with the Court of Appeals. And again, I would appreciate your vote in considering me for a position on November 2nd.
I'd like to thank Wesley Casteen for joining me on today's program. I know it will be helpful for voters in the general election. One last but important point: all judicial elections are nonpartisan. So if you vote a straight party ticket and leave the voting booth, you will have left without voting for any of the judges. Make sure you locate the judicial races on your ballot and cast your vote for the candidate of your choice. I'd like to again thank Mr. Casteen for joining me on today's program, and as always, a special thanks to my Family Court Administrator, Martha Sue Hall, and to Union County's Public Information Officer, Brett Vines, for making this program possible. Until next time, I'm Judge Chris Bragg, and this is your court.